As the leader of the region's largest performing arts center, Dennyse Sewell is a passionate arts advocate who has dedicated her career to serving the Northern Nevada community. Since joining the Pioneer Center in 2003, Dennyse has held a variety of positions within the organization. In 2023, she was named CEO. As the youngest and first female leader in the Pioneer Center's history, Dennyse aims to steward the landmark institution for future generations of Nevadans. In her role as CEO, Dennyse works to align the nonprofit cultural center's programming with its mission and values, and also with the needs of the community. In addition to bringing world-class offerings to Northern Nevada, such as the high-profile touring Broadway Comes to Reno series, Dennyse ensures that local arts organizations have opportunities to present their productions on the historic Pioneer Center stage. She is also passionate about expanding arts access to underserved populations and works closely with the Pioneer Center's board of directors and staff to prioritize outreach, engagement, and education initiatives throughout the community. Dennyse is a proud graduate of the University of Nevada, Reno, and she currently serves on the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority Art Advisory Committee. That is a lot.
Yeah.
And the Arts and Cultural Vitality Data Advisory Group for Truckee Meadows Tomorrow. Dennyse is a member of the International Association of Venue Managers and of the Broadway League, the national organization for Broadway producers and presenters. She was recently named Promotion Person of the Year 2023 by the Reno chapter of the American Advertising Federation. When she is not actively engaged in all things Pioneer Center, Dennyse can be found watching a baseball game or exploring the wild natural beauty of Nevada with her husband Matt and their adopted senior dogs. Please welcome Dennyse Sewell.
Hi everyone, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much for being here tonight, and I want to thank the museum for having me. I'm so honored. When you guys reached out, we were just thrilled to get this invitation to come out here to Fallon. Your comment about the pioneering spirit is so perfect because, of course, this is not exactly what you think of when you think about the Pioneer exhibit in that adjacent room right there, but I'm going to walk you through some of the history of this beautiful organization as well as our current programming and our plans for the future. And so, as announced, my name is Dennyse Sewell. It is my absolute honor and pleasure to serve as CEO of the Pioneer Center for the Performing Arts in Reno, Nevada. Been with the organization for just about 20 years. I actually started in the box office, one of my many student jobs. It was math tutor, dog walker, ticket seller, all the things. And I never could have imagined that it would be my life's path. I actually studied biology, so I definitely thought I was going down a different road. But nonprofit performing arts administration hooked me in a way that I was not anticipating. And so I had an opportunity to start in the administrative office at the theater as a fresh college graduate without a solid plan in life. And fortunately for me, it turned into an absolute work of passion. And I am so honored truly to dedicate my time to that beautiful building and all of the work that we do. Show of hands, have you all been to the Pioneer Center at any point in your life? Raise your hand if you've never been to the Pioneer Center. All right, fantastic. So you'll learn a bit about the organization tonight. Those of you who have been, I still think you'll learn things even if you've been there many times. It is an absolutely fascinating place, and I'm excited to share some of that information with you. So here we go. This unique creature, there is no building like it anywhere else on Earth, and I can tell you that with confidence. The exact combination of the Pioneer Center with that anodized aluminum geodesic dome resting at ground level, and then the theater itself is a concrete bunker that goes 2.5 stories below ground. We're adjacent to the river in downtown Reno, so we actually sit inside the water table. It is a completely insane idea to build the theater the way that they did, but I'll show you some photographs of the original conception and some of the geniuses who were behind this wild project. This building, for its unique features and for what it has meant to the cultural growth in the region, as well as being now 56 years old, it's on the National, State, and City Historic Registers. and we're a proud member of a nationwide association called the League of Historic American Theaters. Now, most of the members of that league are, beautiful opera houses from the 1890s, and then this quirky girl right here. So we're the odd man out in every group, but we kind of love it. We sit at a historic intersection in the heart of downtown Reno. We're actually right where the city was founded, where Lakes Crossing, the original bridge across the Truckee River to create the city of Reno, that's where we sit. We share that intersection with 3 other historic buildings, so all 4 of us are historic register listed buildings, but you can see one of these things is not at all like the others, right? Frederick de Longchamps, a very famous architect, he designed these 3 buildings, and you'll notice that ours is a little different situation there in the far corner, but it wasn't always like that. So I'm gonna take you back a little bit further prior to that quirky spaceship of a building. The plot of land that we're on was originally Central Park in Reno, actually. So it's just a big, beautiful Victorian era park. We love this photograph in winter of this very somber woman, head to toe in her fabulous Victorian garb. There's probably outfits similar to that in the museum here. I would imagine there's some beautiful lace and other textiles from that era. But then in 1926, you'll note that name, Frederick de Longchamps, that same architect that did the other 3 buildings that share our intersection, he designed a building on our plot of land as well. It was called the Nevada State Building, and it was home to a ton of civic organizations. It was a really deeply beloved, community engaged building. It was home to like the Boy Scouts and the DMV and the Historical Society. So many important groups had their home here in the Nevada State Building. A lot of people in Reno also have memories of going to their high school dances in the basement, which was a big open area, and a young little known band called the Beach Boys performed in the basement of that building when they were just up and coming, just young guys. So again, this was a really, really important, really beloved building and a key part of downtown. And so then you may ask yourself, well, what happened to that building? Why is that not there anymore? In the early 1960s, the regional leaders came together and they said, hey, look, in downtown Reno, there's all of these fabulous swinging bands, right? Sammy Davis Jr. is performing 7 nights a week just across the river. There's amazing entertainment happening in the casinos, but there is no fine performing arts center in Reno. If we want to do something that's outside of the casino showroom, outside of that typical big band kind of swinging 60s thing, we need to build a home for it. And we want it to be in the heart of downtown because that's where all of the important action is happening. So they identified this city block right here, where you'll see the Nevada State Building, and then in the front of it is a beautiful park full of trees. They said, hey, we think that's the right plot of land to build our new performing arts center. But because the Nevada State Building was so beloved, it was really kind of a mixed bag for them to say, let's tear that one down and do something different. But they agreed that it was appropriate to send a group of delegates around the country to check out other performing arts centers, other architecture, and kind of start to get a feel for what might be appropriate in Reno. They were really liking these iconic placemaking, landmark, wild structures. And they thought, let's get Reno something that's equally bold and futuristic and kind of crazy. Let's bring back an idea that will really wow people, that's not like anything they've seen before. One of the places they went was Fort Worth, Texas, and they toured this theater called Casa Mañana. This is still standing, but it's very different than the Pioneer Center. It's a big, clear span, open space. But they loved the idea of this geodesic dome. They thought, that's the future of architecture. Let's pitch to Reno that this is what we should do, something really bold, really wild. So they hired a company called Temcor that designed these geodesic domes, and they pitched them the idea of what if we do an underground theater and we cap it with your geodesic dome so that really the shining element, the really noticeable piece of the architecture is that gold anodized aluminum geodesic dome. Temcor loved the idea so much that they made this rendering and they put it on their brochure. So for all of the other geodesic domes they pitched to everybody around the world for various reasons, this was the image that they used to sell, which was the Pioneer Center design. It took a lot of buy-in for people to go for this wild design where you can see there's the geodesic dome at ground level, and then behind it, that big structure on the right side of the image, that's the fly tower. So that's where all of the theatrical things will fly either down into your view or up and away from view. So set pieces, lighting, backdrops, all kind of theatrical things. And then at the front on the left-hand side, you can see that was the proposal for a front plaza with some lighting and a little bit of seating. But they would have to tear down that beloved Nevada State Building to be able to do it. There were a lot of heated conversations, a lot of really funny newspaper articles. I've had so much joy combing them on newspapers.com and seeing, you know, when they interviewed John Q. Public, what do you think about that crazy plan in downtown? It really runs the gamut of the things that people had to say. But ultimately, the regional leaders won out and they said, this is progress, this is what the city needs. We have to have a performing arts center, so this is where we're going to put it. So they went with the architect and created these absolutely gorgeous architectural drawings. We have all of the original blueprints in really huge scale, and they are magnificent to flip through and to ponder that they were all drawn by hand and all of the calculations were done with the human brain. It's absolutely incredible to us to see the cross sections where, again, you can really get a feeling for the grand staircases that descend down 2.5 stories to take you to the main level where the theater is. The bottom left, you can see the way the balcony cantilevers out over the orchestra level. Again, all of this was this beautiful conceptual design from the architects to create something unlike anywhere else. And so then it came time to break ground, and these 4 gentlemen are part of the steering committee that went around the country. Something I love is their nickname for the gentleman on the left was Specs, because of course he wears glasses, so why not? Why not call him Specs McKenzie? So these 4 gentlemen are essentially the fathers of the Pioneer Center, and this is them breaking ground in that beautiful park in front of the Nevada State Building in 1966. And then again, we have some fantastic images of the Pioneer Center under construction, where these gentlemen are on ladders down in the bottom corner. This is the inside of what will become the Fly Tower, that structure that I referenced, where all of the backdrops and lighting and set pieces will fly in and out. So they are down creating the concrete envelope for that, with the geodesic dome getting set on top of the plot of land. And then the building opened to the public January 7, 1968. There was a formal dedication ceremony, and you can see that this pamphlet is pointing out other fantastic things about the region at the time, including our mid-century modern friend, the planetarium on the University of Nevada, Reno campus. Has anyone been to the planetarium? Yeah, another fabulous and completely wild building. And one of the Reno arches at the time, and then this fantastic under the 10-gallon hat, Reno is Bonanza Land. That was their theme for the dedication ceremony, which we just love. And again, the Harrah's Auto Collection, another fantastic historical asset in Reno. And shout out to Virginia City and Lake Tahoe, snow sports, golfing, all the fabulous things that were happening in our area at the time that are still true, right? All of these amazing assets for the place where we live. There was a cornerstone dedication ceremony, November 12, 1967, prior to opening, where they invited some members of fraternal organizations and government officials and business leaders to a dedication here on the plaza before allowing anyone in. You can see these original light poles with their beautiful mid-century design. Those have been lost to the sands of time, but we plan to bring those back because they are so fabulous. And they would add a lot more light to the exterior, so we're excited to resurrect those from this image here. And similar to other just treasures, of course, there are really, really great vintage postcards that feature the Pioneer Center, and I collect those whenever I find them on eBay or in antique stores. And you may be wondering, well, why is it called the Pioneer Theater Auditorium? There's that little statue right there that used to be in the front center of the building, and it is a statue of a pioneer family looking westward. That statue was on the front balcony of the Nevada State Building. So it was considered really important because of the public outcry, because of the love for the state building. When it was agreed that it would be torn down, there was a conversation of we need to have some kind of continuity to what was here before. So what about that statue? What if, instead of our original plan to call it the Apollo Theater, because that's what it was going to be with its wild space-age design, what if we save that statue? What if we put it front and center and we instead call it the Pioneer Theater Auditorium? And so that was their way of honoring what was there before, keeping some sense of continuity. For any of you who've been to the Pioneer Center recently, you know that that statue has moved, so I'll talk about that in a moment on another slide. But originally it sat in a planter bed right in the center of the plaza there. And then just another great image that we love, because we joke that our technical director, we're pretty sure he still drives that exact car. It's not him in the photograph, but it might as well be, because I'm pretty sure that's his car. But another side angle of the beautiful Pioneer Center and the city block that we occupy, with planter beds around the exterior, and then that geodesic dome and the monolith of the Fly Tower in the back there. So the building was actually created as a collaboration of government entities. The land itself was owned by Washoe County. The building was owned by the Convention and Visitors Authority. Their original name was the Washoe County Fair and Recreation Board, but they became the Convention and Visitors Authority. They were managing it collaboratively, and I'm going to use air quotes around collaboratively, between county government, city government, and the Visitors Authority. They had very conflicting ideas of what the building, what its highest use was, of how to prioritize the different things that would happen there. So over the first 20 years, it became clear that the building would benefit from a mission, a vision, a set of values, the kind of thing that a nonprofit brings to a management structure. So it was agreed in 1988 that the primary user groups of the theater, which were all of the local arts organizations, there was the Philharmonic, the opera, the ballet, the chorale, there was a concert association, all of those fantastic local nonprofit arts groups would be best suited to each send a delegate to the creation of a brand new nonprofit, and that nonprofit's vision would be to shepherd that building, to safeguard it, to upgrade it, and to make sure that it stayed available as a performance venue. So in 1988, that is the beginning of our nonprofit, Pioneer Center for the Performing Arts. It's when the name of the building was officially changed from Pioneer Theater Auditorium to Pioneer Center for the Performing, and we're missing the word arts, but I promise you that's the next word in that phrase. But then in 2001, our nonprofit was renamed from its previous, which was Reno Performing Arts Center Association, to just say the name of the nonprofit should be the name of the building. So let's just call it all Pioneer Center for the Performing Arts. And it wasn't until 2012 that Washoe County and the RSCBA came together with our nonprofit and said, you know what, you've been managing it for all these years. You've been meeting the community needs for all these years. It's just kind of a line item on our balance sheet. If you stopped managing it, we wouldn't necessarily know what to do with it. So what if, for the benefit of the community, we deed you the land, we deed you the building, and it is your responsibility, for better and for worse. We're crossing you off our budget, but it's your responsibility now to take this into the future and to manage it the way that you need to. And it was the most wonderful gift for our nonprofit to have the opportunity to really invest in the building, to set its course for the future, to make sure that it stayed on the historic register, and to add all of the different layers of programming that we've put in since then. So it is outright owned by our nonprofit, no strings attached, no assistance attached. However, that also means our hands aren't tied in any way, and so we're able to really make sure that it's never on the chopping block in lean budgeting years for government entities, which is very important to us. And again, like I said, set its future to make sure that it aligns with the values of our nonprofit. So this beauty is outright owned by the Pioneer Center. And there will be another slide further down, but I might as well point out right now, you can see on the corner, I'm gonna step out here, this guy. This is where our friend, the Pioneer statue, is living now, instead of in the center. And the idea was, the original design for the theater was so that you could see that beautiful, even geometric swoop come down to the center point. So putting the statue in a planter bed that blocked that was really not in keeping with the architectural vision. So in 2000, I'm probably gonna get the year wrong, we're gonna say 2002, when the plaza surface was redone, that's when the Pioneer family was moved to the corner there, and then the historic markers are added on the pedestal. So that's now where they sit, looking westward toward the mountains as intended. So you may ask yourself, well, who is Pioneer Center for the Performing Arts nonprofit? You may not have known we were a nonprofit. Did anyone in the room, show of hands, know that we are a nonprofit? No? Okay, one. Yep, not commonly known. So we are a nonprofit that outright owns that beautiful historic venue, and we exist for this reason. Our mission is to cultivate exceptional performing arts experiences, both in that historic venue, but also throughout the region. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that. And we do that because we envision a community that is connected, enriched, and inspired through the power of live performance. So that's what motivates us to do what we do. We try to make our decisions by 4 main guiding principles. The first is that we are all stronger together. We recognize that as a region's leading performing arts center, our impact is really maximized when we collaborate with other organizations and when we partner. We never try to go it alone. We don't want to just create something and hand it to you and say, look, we figured out what art is. We want to make sure that everything we do is to lift up and collaborate with all of our neighbors throughout the region. Another one, of course, is that the arts are for absolutely everyone. So we want to make sure that there's a broad range of programming that happens on our stage. We want to make sure that there is something that could appeal to as close to everybody as we could imagine that might be. And then making sure that everybody feels that the Pioneer Center is their home, that it really feels like their performing arts center, not a place where they're worried, how do I dress? How do I behave? What is the proper etiquette? But that they really feel comfortable and at home in this performing arts center. We're also really, really driven by the idea that education is absolutely fundamental. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit further. But we know for a fact, we all know this, right? Access to arts strengthens educational outcomes and it inspires creative, compassionate citizens. So we want to make sure that we are always facilitating and providing as many dynamic education opportunities as we can, both for children, as evidenced by the school bus here, but all the way through lifelong learning, including seniors. I'll talk about some of those programs in just a moment. And then last but not least, we own that beautiful building, so we have to recognize that we are stewards of this cultural treasure. It's been around before us, it will stay around after us. We are the custodians in this moment in time, but in order to make sure that it really does outlast those of us who are managing it right now, we have to make sure that we're guided by integrity and sustainability, both in how we maintain the building, but also in our business practices. If we maintain the building perfectly, but we had kind of a little bit shisty business practices, we would be doing a disservice to that organization and to its future as well. So we make sure everything we do is as honest and filled with integrity and transparent as we possibly can. If you've been to an event at the Pioneer Center, which the vast majority of you have, you know that there are these incredibly helpful, friendly, kind, amazing, generous folks that are always identified in a maroon vest with the Pioneer Center logo. Those folks are all volunteers. There are over 400 incredibly dedicated volunteers from all throughout the region who come together every single time we have an event that the public is invited to. They are the people you will meet, they are the hands you will shake, they are the smiles you will encounter. It's almost never a staff member because as a nonprofit we have a tiny little team. It's the power of volunteers that make all of this possible. Is there anyone in the room who is a volunteer or whose friend is a volunteer? Because that's almost always the case. Okay, you're 1 degree of separation. Someone you know is a volunteer, I promise you. We do have folks who drive in for the matinees from Fallon, from Gardnerville. It's just amazing the dedication that these folks have. It's really phenomenal. The primary things that happen at the Pioneer Center, as I mentioned, when our nonprofit was founded, it was delegates from each of the primary performing arts organizations. Over the years, some of those organizations have changed. There is unfortunately no longer an opera company in Northern Nevada, and they were fabulous, so hopefully they come back someday. The chorale has disbanded, the concert association, but the Reno Phil, who has seen a Reno Phil concert? Yes, they are so fantastic. We have the most amazing world-class Philharmonic. They actually formed as a group the year after the Pioneer Center was constructed. So it's evidence that if you build it, they will come, right? A performing arts center was created, and then all of those cool musicians playing the swing and music with Sammy Davis said, well, what if we made a Philharmonic and we played the stuff that we love? What if we got to play the classical music that inspired us? So that was the founding of the Philharmonic, and they have been a resident company playing the vast majority of their concerts in our theater for over 55 years now. They just started their 56th season with us. So incredible deep history with that organization. And then also a fantastic company called AVA Ballet Theater. Has anyone seen the Nutcracker at the Pioneer Center recently? Yes, phenomenal. Put on by AVA Ballet with live accompaniment by the Reno Phil. It is so beautiful. If you haven't, it's on sale now for this December. Highly encourage it. It's so beautiful. They also do other ballets throughout the year in our venue, typically really family friendly. Like you can see again, this is a photograph of Alice in Wonderland. So they choose ballets that will appeal to people of all ages and that the storyline will already be familiar to little ones, so they're not quite so restless when they're sitting through. When I brought my niece to the Nutcracker the first time, she loved it. She was very little. When I brought her the second time, she was still very little, and she said really loudly, "We already saw this." It's a tradition, honey. And she's like, no, I saw this movie. And I said, well, it's not a movie, it's ballet. So I tried very hard to turn her into a ballet lover, but it didn't work in my family. So I go by myself, which is fine. And then our third phenomenal resident company is Art Town. Are you guys familiar with Art Town? They do that month-long festival in July with performances all around the community. That's actually not what we host for them. We host what they call their Encore series. It's when they bring these world-class artists, I mean, Itzhak Perlman, Mikhail Baryshnikov, incredible artists. They bring them during other months of the year, the non-July programming. That's what we host in our theater with Art Town. And then of course our baby, our beloved, is the Broadway Comes to Reno series. We've been presenting these national touring Broadway shows for 30 years now. This is our 30th anniversary of doing this. And it's something that we are so proud of. This, unlike being a host and a home to the other arts organizations, this is something that we curate. So we are the presenter. We don't make the shows, of course. These are the national Broadway tours. We're not casting them. We're not designing anything. These are incredible multi-semi-truck performances that are going all around the country. They roll up to Reno on typically either a Monday night or a Tuesday morning. They load all of their stuff into the Pioneer Center, set it up real quick like little ants, and then by Tuesday night we start the performances. We do 8 shows in a week. They finish their Sunday night show, and as soon as the lights go down, they're packing all their stuff back into the trucks, getting on the road and going to the next city. So it's an absolutely wild business model, but it's wonderful. It's how we bring the newest things from New York straight here to Reno. We kicked off the season with Mrs. Doubtfire. Did anybody attend Mrs. Doubtfire? I thought it was hilarious. I'm going to speak on your behalf and say you thought so too. Coming up next in December, we have Beetlejuice, and then as you can see, going through all the way to July with the Neil Diamond, A Beautiful Noise, which I'm very excited that the Neil Diamond, I say fake Neil Diamond, but the Neil Diamond performer will be singing Coming to America at the Pioneer Center on July 4th, which I think is so cool. So hopefully you guys will come join us for that. So yeah, for 30 years, we've been bringing these Broadway tours. One of the things that they do in all of the theaters that they visit across the country is they leave their mark on the wall. So every single tour identifies someone in the cast who has an artistic hand, and they have them paint their logo, and then all of the members of the cast and crew that travel with the show sign their names. And it's so much fun when a show loads in. They run through the halls and find, oh, I was here with that show, or oh, that was my college roommate, or like, oh my gosh, I gotta send a picture, that's my cousin. So it's just this wonderful way that connects us to all the other Broadway roadhouses and all of the other tours that have come through. Incredible number of shows that have been here. We did a count, and it was 100, I don't have it in my notes, 175 titles, I wanna say, that have been through, so not including repeats. But as you can imagine, the shows that have been here the most are Cats and Stomp. Those are the perennial favorites that every time you bring them out, people love them because it reminds them of the last time they saw it or when they brought their kids to see it. So those family favorites are the most popular things. And then we put this in here because, oh, and it's formatted a little funny, my apologies. However, you can still get a sense of it. The idea being that not everyone who attends the Pioneer Center lives in Reno. Y'all know that because you live in Fallon, right? So you're well aware of that. But we love looking at the zip codes of our ticket buyers and really understanding that this is the portion of people who come from Reno Sparks. Tourists meaning not anywhere within the Northwestern Nevada region. And then the other slices there, Northwestern Nevada, including, of course, Fallon, Fernley, Gardnerville, all of these other beautiful outlying communities. The one on the left is Broadway, since we reopened post-pandemic. And then the one on the right is just all tickets to all events at the Pioneer Center. And then another fun one that we threw in here because we did a little bit of digging specifically about Fallon zip code. And what we found, and it's a little bit counterintuitive, but essentially what it means is, of all the people who buy tickets, 1.1% come from Fallon. But of all the people who buy Broadway tickets, still 1.1%, but you account for 1.3% of the total sales, which means you buy more tickets per order than any other zip code, which I think is really fun. So when you guys take the time to drive to Reno, you bring your friends, you bring your family. You're not making that drive by yourself, right? So we love thinking about those groups of folks who are driving in to experience a show at the Pioneer. And I assume enjoy a meal at a restaurant nearby and make a day of it, or maybe stay overnight depending on the weather. So just fun to note that. And so then coming up at the Pioneer Center, I wanted to just give you guys a little taste of the various things that we have going. Oh, and it jumped ahead already. So we have, the formatting is bizarre, my apologies. So we have a Spanish flamenco guitarist named Dennyse who will be here in just a couple of days. His shows are fantastic if anyone is interested in that. And then I added some kind of cheeky things in here, but again, the idea was to show you the Pioneer Center has something for everyone. So perhaps it is flamenco guitar. Perhaps it is this wild situation right here. If any of you are into like extreme stunts and pranks and very wild things. I'm not going to be in the audience. However, again, something for everyone at the Pioneer Center, making sure that even if you don't think that there would be a live entertainment, performing arts type thing you'd be interested in, there is. It's just a little different. And then, of course, the 49th, hard to believe, 49th anniversary of Rocky Horror Picture Show with the original Brad Majors. Again, something for absolutely everybody. And then toning it right back down with the Reno Phil, the things we are more accustomed to presenting, the things our volunteer ushers are much more accustomed to volunteering for. So we'll go right back into the beautiful, beautiful Philharmonic. Their season opener was last weekend, and it was spectacular, as always, with everything the Phil does, really gorgeous. Then we kick off the holiday season with Mannheim Steamroller Christmas. Has anyone ever seen a Mannheim Steamroller? Yeah, yep, fantastic. So they are gonna bring out all of the dazzling Christmas spectacular things that you would expect. So to get you in the holiday mood, that will be November 29th and 30th. Then we keep rolling with more holiday extravaganza things. The Reno Phil, they do this fabulous concert called Spirit of the Season, where not only is it the orchestra musicians, but they will bring out singers and tap dancers. And there's often a gentleman whose dogs do really fantastic tricks, and they'll bring out student violinists, and it's just this incredible extravaganza, really. I mean, they just do a phenomenal job with so many different organizations. A lot of times they will invite the handbell ensemble, so they will do those beautiful Christmas carols with just the handbells. That's a fabulous one. Highly recommend if you've never been.
I have a question.
Yeah, of course.
Are those always usually in the evenings, or do they have afternoons?
They have matinees as well. Yes, yeah. So the Philharmonic, for this one specifically, Friday will be an evening. Saturday, December 7th, there will be a matinee and an evening. Sunday, December 8th, same thing, a matinee and an evening. So they always have those afternoon performances. Those, of course, are the first to go. So if you're thinking about it, I would encourage acting quickly, because the afternoon is when everybody, including me, loves to go. And then we're back with Beetlejuice, the next musical in our Broadway lineup. We're so excited. That's a very, very new one. It's on its first national tour. So it's all equity performers, and it's just going to be a huge, I had the pleasure of seeing this in New York, and it is gigantic and very colorful and very funny. The set is massive. For anyone who's familiar with the film, the Michael Keaton Beetlejuice film, that big stripy sandworm makes many appearances in the musical, and it is massive. So you'll really, really enjoy that if you do choose to go. Those performances run Tuesday through Sunday, and again, there are evening and matinee options within that week as well. And then, of course, no holiday complete without the Nutcracker. So this beautiful performance, again, with ballerinas both from the region and then featured guest principal dancers from other major ballet companies are flown in for the lead roles. The Reno Phil does the live score. That is December 20 through 22. And again, same thing, there will be weekend matinees for that as well. Very, very beautiful. But we do more than just host performances at the Pioneer Center. There are other ways that, even though we are a nonprofit, we want to make sure that we are using the incredible gift, the incredible platform that we have of bringing people together for shared experiences, for positive things that are special and memorable for them, to capture their attention in that moment and use that for good in other ways as well. So some of the ways we do that, we certainly subsidize the rental rates of our theater so that it is very discounted for local organizations. We donate tickets to performances to nonprofits and school fundraisers. We sponsor performance groups and workshops, so actual physical sponsorship. We do a bunch of free outreach performance tours and student workshops. One of the things we love to do is collect donated goods for other nonprofits. When you come to a Broadway show, maybe we're doing a drive for the food bank, or the Humane Society, or student like backpack and school supply drives, those kinds of things. And then, of course, recognize and promote the work of other organizations, both at our events and then also in the Broadway series playbills, so giving free advertising space for those organizations. We also like to create our own stuff sometimes. In the pandemic, when we were not able to let anyone inside our beautiful building, we had some very challenging conversations as an organization of what is our relevance to the community if we can't bring people together. We knew we couldn't bring them inside, but what about that big plaza out front? We started to ask, what kinds of things could you do with that space? Full well knowing that weather in Nevada is pretty wild and unpredictable. It could be boiling hot or too windy, or all of a sudden it could rain or snow. But we identified that there's some pretty sweet moments in the end of August where the weather is really still pretty favorable. And our first go is creating this new signature event, which we've been doing for 3 years now. It's the Dog Days of Summer Dance Festival, where we commission up and coming dance organizations all throughout the region. So all local Northern Nevada dance companies, but none of them who are large enough to perform on our main stage or who have a huge following already. We want to really spotlight and lift up and give performance opportunities to other groups. And we also want to do it with our friends at the SPCA of Northern Nevada because, as my little intro said, I love dogs. And so we thought, okay, what if there's a way to activate the outside, involve dance, bring together the community, close some parking spaces, hire some food trucks, and get some adoptable dogs out there. So that's what this is all of those things thrown into one. And it is fabulous. So if you are around and you do want to come to Reno in late August, to experience this, you'll see we build a raised stage outside. We bring out all of our incredible theatrical gear, and then we have folks bring their lawn chairs or their blankets, and they sit in about 270 degrees around the stage. And then as the sun sets, which this photograph was taken on a magnificent evening, we can then start to play with lighting and projection. So we cast color and pattern and video onto not just our building, but all the buildings around us. So absolutely everything in our area is lit up. And all of these incredibly talented dancers. I mean, there are dance companies here that I didn't know we have. We have Bollywood dance companies. There's just incredible cultural arts. There are, of course, traditional Hawaiian hula dance groups. There are Basque dance groups. There's so much wealth in the dance community, and this is our opportunity to give them a platform and to build future relationships with them. So we really love that event. Another thing that we do is outreach to elementary schools and public libraries specifically for children. Since 1967, we've been operating this, which is called Pioneer Center Youth Programs. And our logo is the little golden turtle, which is the Pioneer Center, but he's making his way out to you, so he's mobile. We present these programs for children. It's available in over 126 venue locations. So it is within about 150 to 200 mile radius. Including a diverse range of artists. Every single year we switch up the artist roster. So it could be Japanese taiko drumming, it could be Peruvian music, it could be step dance, it could be theater, it could be jazz trios, all kinds of different things. And we bring them to schools all over, including right here in Fallon. We present programming in these elementary schools as well. So this is a program that we've been doing for a long time that we're really, really proud of. It typically reaches about 30,000 children a year throughout the region. But we also like to connect high school and college students with the performing arts. So we created a new program post-pandemic called Behind the Curtain. This is where we invite high school and college theater students or theater tech students to observe a load-in of a national Broadway tour and then have Q&A with the folks who are traveling with the show on the road, learn about what life is like in the Broadway industry. And then depending on the show and whether we can get them to agree to it, we can also do performance workshops on stage sometimes with the students where the actors or the dancers or the singers are coaching these young students in their craft. So this is a really, really wonderful opportunity, again, to get these students some hands-on real-world experience with the Broadway tours to kind of continue to light that fire. And even if they choose to go a different path with their career, they will have learned more about the industry and they will have deepened their love of performing arts, and that's really our goal with those opportunities. So we've been able to do those with shows like Tina, the Tina Turner musical, Anastasia. Most recently, when we hosted To Kill a Mockingbird in June, there was an acting workshop with those performers. So really fantastic experiences for those students. And then as I mentioned earlier, lifelong learning. We want to make sure we're not just focusing on the traditional definition of student, meaning small child or high school and college, but really trying to understand if we engage in outreach for younger folks, what kind of outreach could we do for older folks as well? And the way this came about was in the pandemic, again, asking ourselves, what is our relevance in the community if it's not just we opened the door, you came in, you saw a show, you went home? Knowing that the authentic connection with our fellow community members, that those transformational moments, they happen not just if you bought a ticket and came and saw a Broadway show, they happen because art was part of your life, right? It was part of this museum that you visited. It was part of walking down the street, a surprise and delight. There's a caroler on the street corner, right? It's those moments that we know that art connects people, brings people together in a way that nothing else can. And in the pandemic, there were so many statistics about isolation and loneliness for absolutely everybody, but especially for senior citizens who were in assisted living facilities. Their families couldn't come visit them. It was not legally allowed for them to have visitation. And so we started to put together, what is a way for us to bring the performing arts into memory care and assisted living facilities, where folks who don't have the option to come to the theater can still have the healing power of the arts. So we created this program called Golden Encore, and again, it has medical benefits. There's real research that proves why this is true, but we also just know experientially. We know it in our gut. You do too. If you've ever been to a performance of any kind, you know the way that it opens your heart, opens your mind, recalls your memories, gives you a sense of community with the folks who shared that experience with you. So we wanted to create this to bring into those facilities. And it's only been around for 1 year, but it's been incredibly successful so far, going into a bunch of venues all throughout the Reno-Sparks area and addressing all sorts of issues, including things we weren't expecting, like helping caregivers. We're finding that family members and staff at these facilities are commenting on what a relief it was for them to have a joyful hour of performance as well, in addition to things like, letters of support where their short-term memory loss patients are still talking about the show days later. And so we know that it is making an impact in the venues that we're able to do that in, so we're really excited about that. And it started only in Washoe County because we got seed funding from the county government, but now that the first year is over and the seed money has been used up, we're dedicated to continuing it regardless. And so if anyone has connections to venues here in the Fallon area that this would be of interest, I have some information on a card back there, and we would love to connect with you because we really see firsthand the transformational power of providing this to people who otherwise don't have access to come together at a performance space. But then for folks who can travel, we also really like to take our patrons on theater tours. So once a year, for any patron who's interested in signing up, we do a week-long tour to New York City, where we go to museums and parks and cultural sites, and historic sites, and we see as many Broadway shows as you can stand to see in a week. So it's our way of not only do we bring Broadway to Reno, but we want to bring Reno to Broadway when we can. We also, every once in a while, do tours to London, and we have one that's leaving in just 6 days that I'm so sad I won't be joining them. But we are, again, sending a tour group to London for similar things, to see theater on the West End, to see theater in Stratford-upon-Avon at Shakespeare's birthplace. So all kinds of really fantastic theater experiences, both out in the world and, of course, in our historic theater. So from all those things that we do, and for the silly formatting that I'm going to fix on my slides, for anyone who is interested in social media, if that's the way you get your information, Facebook is where we share, what's she doing now? Facebook is where we share the majority of our stuff, but also Instagram. And I'm not on TikTok, but if you happen to be a TikToker, knock yourself out. We got one of those too. But the main thing, of course, is our website. It's where we list all of the events, all of the programs, all of the outreach. And the easiest thing, if you are interested, would be going to our website, which is very simple, just pioneercenter.com, because of course that's who we are. And then look on the side there where it says get exclusive pre-sale offers via email. It's not just pre-sale offers. It's really the calendar of events. It's all of the outreach programming. It's updates about the kinds of things we're doing in the community. So if you wanted to just have that delivered to your email inbox, this is the easiest way to get it. And then, of course, anything, anytime, pioneercenter.com. And I would love to take any questions, and I'm so thrilled to be here. So thank you guys for being such a great audience. Really appreciate it. Yeah.
How do you choose next year's programming? And who chooses it, and what considerations do you guys make when you're making those?
Yeah, so it depends on which type of programming you're talking about.
Like Broadway.
Yep, so since Broadway is the thing that we present, all of those other organizations decide their own programming. So the Philharmonic, the Ballet, Art Town, they do their own programming. For the Broadway series, it's a very, very complicated puzzle where I work closely with our partners at an organization called Nederlander. They're one of the kind of the 800-pound gorillas in the Broadway industry. So they, not only do they produce shows on Broadway, but they also have connections to help present those shows in other venues around the country. And so I work with them. We're typically looking about 2, sometimes 3 years in the future. When shows do really well at the Tony Awards, every theater across the country says, "Oh yeah, we want that one, we want that one." So we find that Reno is a pretty little fish in the industry, but we do it anyway. We throw our hat in the ring every single time. So we're always looking at what is out on Broadway right now that seems like it has a chance of surviving and going out on the road, because even if a show is incredible, it doesn't mean it has the financial backing to then mount a national tour and then survive and continue. So we tend to look at what has a major producer that it might actually get a shot out there. What do we think tells a story that people in Reno would be interested in, or what do we know is a revival of something that like, oh, gives us all the good feeling and we know people here will want it too. Sometimes we say, what's a show that definitely they've never heard of, but it's so good. We want to give everybody the chance to see it. And we found that our audiences they take a risk with us. They will sign up for something where they're like, I have no idea what that is, but it's part of the season, so okie dokie, count me in. It's how we've been able to do some really, really fun sleeper hits over the years that people say like, I had no idea what The Drowsy Chaperone was, and it was my favorite show. Like, we love those kinds of opportunities. For me personally, I want to make sure there's always something that could appeal to families. There's always a classical musical, so something that someone's like, I have heard of that, but also always something new, so that for younger audiences who are like, I don't care about Oklahoma, but I totally care about Anne Juliet, right? Like, we want to make sure there's something that appeals to everybody. And then the hardest thing is timing. So making sure that we can schedule the shows appropriately to the best of our ability and not scrunch them all together at a certain time of year. And then also make sure that there are really good dates available for the Philharmonic, the ballet, Art Town, all of the other organizations. But even then, with all the best laid plans, when we commit to a show and we hold the dates and we get the collateral ready, they may get a better offer from a bigger city and they may still drop us. So it's always this kind of churning process. If you are, Los Angeles, you definitely get to just call the shots. But when you're Reno, you don't necessarily. So we're also at the mercy of how they're routing themselves across the country. So if they say, oh, well, we'll be in New York that week, so it doesn't matter that you have that time available because we're nowhere near. But it also plays to our advantage sometimes where they say, oh, well, we're coming from San Francisco, and then we're gonna head over to Salt Lake. So hey, do you wanna give us a week in Reno? So we've been able to land some really fun things just due to routing that otherwise they wouldn't look at a city our size. So it's very complicated, a lot of pieces.
What sort of coordination do you do with the casinos in town? Because I know, like you said, at one point you had Sammy Davis Jr. So an analogous performer today, geez, I don't know. So how do you make sure that you don't have conflicts between what you do and the Nugget or some of those other?
Yeah, I love that question. So the casinos have, as you could imagine, greater resources than we do. And so they will make much more competitive offers to popular musical acts. So that's why, not that Taylor Swift has been to Reno, but if Taylor Swift did come to Reno, she would not come to the Pioneer Center, right? When you see like major known touring music names, they're always at casinos because again, like their assets are just so different than a nonprofit. And so they're able to make these really competitive offers to those kind of groups. It's also why you'll see a lot of comedians at the casinos. Again, just kind of the offer sheets that they're rolling out are a little bit different than ours. So I think it's really just that the type of art is so different. The casinos don't tend to have any interest in a ballet. It's not necessarily a like, have a lot of drinks with your friends and go to the ballet kind of thing. And so because their business model is based certainly on food and beverage, which is in-house for them, also on if you happen to have sufficient food and beverage that you chose to do a little bit of gambling, they love that. And then maybe you even stay the night at their property. So they tend to look for acts where you'll want to really have a big night out. And that doesn't tend to align quite as much with the fine arts. So we just don't really see a lot of similar interests as far as the type of entertainment that gets presented. But boy, we'd sure love to do a few more live music. We did an acoustic and unplugged Bryan Adams twice, and it was so fabulous. So we want a little bit more of that kind of stuff, but it just depends on if we can outcompete, or if the artist wants to be in a historic theater, and sometimes they do. Sometimes they say, I don't want a smoky showroom, I want to go to the historic theater.
Being where you are and having your main performing area underground, do you have issues with flooding, and how do you mitigate that?
Oh, how fun! I wish I had thrown in the flood slide. So yes, we are 2.5 stories below ground. We're inside the water table. It is a concrete bunker. We were on the National Register of Fallout Shelters. So it was intentionally meant to be like, if anything goes down, you just gotta head into the Pioneer. We had barrels full of MREs and wool blankets and water. Even when I started working, they were still there. So yes, in order to keep out the groundwater, when the facility was constructed, there is of course a huge drainage system around the exterior of that concrete bunker, and there's a sump pump that 24/7 lead lag just pushes out the groundwater all the time. If anyone has nostalgia for the smell of the Pirates of the Caribbean ride at Disneyland, that's what our sump pump room smells like, and I always love to say, yeah, that's Pirates of the Caribbean, I know that smell. So we're constantly pushing groundwater back out. In 1997, for anyone who was in this area at the time, when there was that massive, massive, rapid snowmelt, and all of the water came rushing down the Truckee River, the city of Reno overflowed the riverbanks and flooded over the surface into a ton of downtown buildings. The Pioneer Center didn't flood from that way. We didn't get river water come up and onto the plaza and through the doors and down. We percolated up from the bottom. So the orchestra pit is the lowest part in the building, and the sump pumps were pushing so hard, but they were pushing against the force of all of that saturated ground that they burned out the motors. And it also happened over New Year's, and so there was no one in the building. And so no one knew that the alarm had gone off, and this was in '97, so there wasn't a technological backup to tell you on your smartphone that the pump has burned up. So we percolated up from the bottom, and because no water came in over the top, the folks who were running the theater at the time thought, oh, we made it, nothing happened, we're totally fine. So they didn't go in for a few days, because of course you couldn't get to downtown, so it wasn't easy for them to access it. By the time they could finally get there and they walked in, they realized, oh my goodness. So all the power, of course, was out. And a stagehand, which is the photo I wish I had included, we have a stagehand in a canoe with the Nevada flag, proudly. And he's canoeing out into the auditorium to try to figure out where the damage is and what to do and how to get started. So yes, the next time you come to the Pioneer Center, the walls of the auditorium are vertical wood slats, and there's a horizontal slat, only one, and it's not decorative. It's because that's where we had to cut everything and gut it all out and then redo it. So all of the orchestra level is redone. The water was actually 4 or 5 feet on the stage deck as well. So again, it was all through the backstage. We have other photographs taken by the RGJ of water shooting out of the electrical outlets because there was so much pressure from the groundwater inside the building. It was finding any way it could to get out. So yes, we have flooded. Since then, sump pump technology is better. There are 2 of them now. There's a fail-safe now, and the fail-safe is mounted way up high so that water can't short-circuit it. And we have little sensors now, so that if there's any moisture that starts to accumulate anywhere, the sensors will go off. So our hope is technology will help us with this. But yes, we have flooded just once, apocalyptically. And so then there are also photographs of the performances post-flood where we just had the cement floor and folding chairs because the show was still gonna happen. And so there were 1,000 folding chairs on the main level.
What's the most fulfilling part of your job?
Oh, that's a great question. I think to know, I always feel so humble because the organization, if you think about 56 years of impact and programming, not just the people in the audience, but the people on stage who have performed, or the stagehands who have made their living wage in that regard, right? Like all the people who've been touched by it, and then all the concentric circles that go out. And when we hear things like, you know, the person in that national tour, oh my gosh, they went to school at Lake Tahoe and they performed their first little recital at the Pioneer Center, right? It's like all of those ripple effects of what it is to have a performing arts center for so long. And so I think the most fulfilling thing for me is just to feel really small in that way. I love that I have this gift right now that I get to be the steward of it, but that it's nothing to do with me at all. I think it's so wonderful because it really is this gift for absolutely everybody else that I get to play with, but it isn't like, I joke about this, it's not like, get off my lawn, kids, right? Because like there's a lot of people who approach businesses in that regard, right? Like my way or the highway. This is everyone's performing arts center, and yeah, it just feels like such an honor to me. Yeah.
You mentioned that some of these performers that come through have signs on the wall, or have an emblem. Where is that located?
So it's all backstage. Yes, and so one of the things that we actually want to start doing is offering backstage tours. It's not nearly as glamorous as you might think it is. It's workhorse, right? Like it's all cement, it's all bleachable, it's all pretty rough. But we want to start offering tours so that people can see those, because again, there's 30 years of incredible, and you'll have the memory of like, oh my gosh, I saw Kiss of the Spider Woman. I couldn't remember that happened, but now I remember because I saw the sign. And we're going to start sharing some photos of those through our website. But yeah, we want people to be able to walk the space and see it and peek in those dressing rooms, and again, understand like, well, it's not glamorous backstage. It's really not. Like, these are people who got off the bus and they put on their makeup and they do this incredible performance for 2.5 hours, and then they wash off their makeup and they get back on the bus, right? Like, it's just, the most glamorous aspect is the patron experience, not the performer experience. It's really interesting. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Have you had any problems with the geodesic dome?
So it's gold anodized aluminum, so it never needs to be touched up in terms of the material. Like, it's always going to be gold, right? We don't have to paint it or anything crazy like that. But it's comprised of 500 triangular panels, and they're all joined by either welding or some kind of like caulking, like rubberized caulking stuff. And so, yes, we're at the age now, she's been in the high desert sun for long enough now, that we do need to redo all of the joint sealing. And there are very few companies that work on geodesic domes, because of course they're not common structures. But we have connected with a company that has done that for a couple of other domes. And geodesic domes in other places that are getting built now tend to be for like oil refineries and things like that. So they're not necessarily for glamorous uses. But we've connected with some of those companies that can come out and very, very carefully, one by one, rejoint all of those panels. So yes, that project is in our future, for sure. And don't tell anybody, but yes, we got a couple buckets up there that we empty regularly when it rains. All right, well, thank you guys so much. I really hope that you come see something this season, and say hi if you ever see me in the lobbies wandering around. Thank you guys.